Hello, and a warm welcome to everyone joining this webinar, Level Up, Unlock New Logistics Solutions, where we'll be exploring some critical nuances and inner workings of international trade within the context of bilateral trade between Jamaica and Canada. My name is Stephen Charu, Consul for Trade and Investment in Canada through JAMPRO, and I will be your moderator for today. But before we get started, let's establish some ground rules. This webinar is being recorded. All video and audio have been turned off for participants. If you have questions, please type them in the question and answer box below, not in the chat. Your questions will be answered by one of the panelists live or responded to in the box. No verbal questions will be allowed. All right, so today we will be hearing from Don Gittins, the Manager for Logistics and Infrastructure at JAMPRO, Shannon Blanchard, which is the Cargo Development Manager of Port of St. John, and Luis Tazatos, Regional Manager in Quebec and Atlantic Canada for CMA CGM. So we have a very exciting lineup of panelists ahead for you, and we do hope that you will be able to get some good value from the discussions. We invite you to be very interactive through your questions in the Q&A box, and I will hand over to Don at this moment. Don, are you okay with, okay.
Yes, I'm okay. I am. Morning, everyone.
All right.
Good morning. Yes, we're here. Morning. Thank you, Stephen, for that wonderful introduction and those kind words. And welcome to everyone who's on. And I'll just take you through quickly, just a quick overview of Jamaica and our logistics sector on a whole. And as you can see, it says, think you know Jamaica? We are logistics. And I'll take you through quickly. I'll give you some quick facts about Jamaica. We have a strong sea connectivity. And with that strong sea connectivity, this is where Louis will have that discussion with you about CMA CGM, and Shannon would explain to you how it all comes together. So they're going to explain to you how our strong sea connectivity will give you those opportunities that you'll be looking for as you look to export and import your goods. So Jamaica has the #1 transshipment port in the region currently, and we are home to the 7th largest harbor in the world, and that's the Kingston Harbor, the 7th largest natural harbor. And we do have quite a few cruise and commercial ports as well, which we have been developing and making sure that the connectivity is there. This snapshot just shows you the shipping routes where we are. As you can see, coming out of the Panama Canal, we are one of the first stops there. And then we are where we are situated, our location gives us a good segue into the eastern seaboard, over to Europe, down into the Caribbean and South America. So you can see from that visual that we are pretty connected. Just a few on the logistics sector. So the logistics consists of investments in the following subsectors. So in the following subsectors of bunkering, we have large companies here in bunkering. So any ships that are passing through, they can get their ships fueled. One of our local ones, West Indies Petroleum, Bunker One, some other companies that we have. Ship chandling, where we act as provision for goods and services to the vessels. Ship maintenance and repair, warehousing and distribution, and value-added logistics. So as you can see, Jamaica is a very well diverse ecosystem as it relates to logistics for ships. And just to give you some quick facts about Jamaica that you might not have known, or if you know, I'm just going to verify for you. We have an open and transparent investment regime, and that's what JAMPRO is here to do. JAMPRO is here to ensure that all investors, local and foreign, go through an easy transition of investing in Jamaica, and that's what Jamaica is, and that's what JAMPRO is here to help with. We have a stable and supportive democratic government. We have an educated and trained workforce of up to 1.3 million approximately. We are actually the largest English-speaking country in the Caribbean. We have a robust telecoms infrastructure with redundancy, and that is key. And that's also a part of the connectivity. We have a strong road infrastructure, which we are building out as we continue, because there's additional investments going into the road network. Our debt to GDP ratio has been coming down, which is good for the economy. We had over 16.5 billion in foreign direct investment over a period of time. And the last three is key: no foreign exchange controls, so you can invest and move your money easily. Zero restriction on foreign ownership, and no restriction on repatriation of profits. All right, those are just some quick facts about Jamaica. The sector overview quickly. We have essentially about 4,000 ship calls to the country, and we are actually in the process of what we call is a logistics master plan. And part of that logistics master plan is actively positioning the country as a fourth node in the international logistics chain. We're very ambitious and we punch above our weight. We're little, but we tallow. So we're going to ensure that we get this done. And just a few of our unique value propositions. Obviously, I spoke about the strategic geographic location earlier. And the connectivity and container port capacity. So we are connected to over 140 ports globally and served by 2 international airports, which gives us, which connects up all of the major international hubs. And the trade agreements offering preferential access to North America, European and regional markets. And Shannon and Louis will also have a touch on that a little bit. But we have the EPA Economic Partnership Agreement with Europe, the Caribbean Basin Economic, this is Caribbean Basin Initiative, CARIBCAN with Canada, and CARICOM and CARIFORUM, which speaks to the region. And the port, which is managed and operated by CMA CGM, they have done extensive infrastructure upgrades to the port itself, and they've made a significant investment there. And as you can see, we are now able to handle up to 3.2 million TEUs of capacity and handle the largest ships coming through, post-Panama ships coming through the Panama Canal. And I had mentioned earlier the diverse ecosystem and infrastructure. And what we have done is that we've put in the soft infrastructure. So the port community system, the government launched one of the largest port community systems in the Americas, which connects the seaports and the airports, as well as with Asicuda. So they're all linked together, right? And we also have a world-class maritime logistics training through the Caribbean Maritime University. It's one of the only that we have here. So training is actually significant in Jamaica, and this is done for the region, right? And I mentioned the diverse ecosystem earlier, where we look at the bunkering, maintenance, and repair. We're actually in the process of having the international ship registry. And of course, I cannot not mention the special economic zone incentive, which is some of the incentives that we have here, and I'll touch on it a little bit more. So our special economic zone incentive is to benefit from the following fiscal incentives: low corporate tax, income tax of 12.5%, and that can come down to about 8.5%, depending on some of the other initiatives that you take. Duty-free importation, no value-added tax or general consumption tax on importation, expedited business services, and that's what the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority is there for. We work very closely with them at JAMPRO, and withholding tax exemptions. And those are just a few that I would have highlighted. And all business activities are permitted in the special economic zone and can get the fiscal benefits, except these following: financial services, which has its own incentives, construction services, real estate, health service, catering service, and retail trade, which has their own set of incentives with them. And this is just a slide that shows you the strategic trade and bilateral agreements. And like I said, Shannon and Louis will touch on that. As you can see, the Caribbean Basin Initiatives has about 300 million persons that we can reach. And the CARIFORUM, EU, EPA is about 500 million. And CARICOM, can't leave out CARICOM, about 15 million. And this is just the overall, if I can give you a cycle of life. So you see multimodal sea, bunkering, multimodal land, and Shannon and Louis will speak to the rail as well, on land, special economic zones, multimodal air, and then the company headquarters and everything. So it's the cycle of the opportunities as it is with Jamaica for logistics. And these are just a few of the opportunity areas that we like to identify: medical devices, medical equipment, light assembly. Light assembly is always good. Agro-processing, products high in limestone and nutraceuticals. And that's it for me. I told you I was going to be brief because we want to focus on Shannon and Louis as they tell you about everything that we have to offer as it relates to opportunities with the movement of cargo between Jamaica and Canada. So back over to you, Stephen.
Excellent, thank you, Don. So you would have heard from Don about Jamaica's strong value proposition for logistics and shipping. And it's there are a few things that would stick out in Don's presentation, such as the strong value proposition for operators through the special economic zone incentive. We have readily available talent through the Caribbean Maritime University. We have a large market access based on Jamaica's trading agreements with the CBI, the Canada, and the CARICOM. So yeah, we're strongly positioned to really be a hard hitter in the shipping and logistics space. So thanks for clarifying that and providing us with some more insights on that, Don. All right. For those who would have missed it, I just want to refresh our minds that JAMPRO is the agency of the government of Jamaica with responsibility for the promotion and facilitation of trade and investment. So we are a trade promotion agency and an investment promotion agency. All right, so I think we're all pretty excited to hear from Shannon and Louis. So I will hand over the reins right now to Shannon. And I believe they're going to be collaborating on their presentation. So you'll probably hear from them both back and forth. But Shannon and Louis, over to you.
Thank you, Stephen, and good morning to our participants. I'm Shannon Blanchard, and I'm the manager of cargo development at Port St. John. And today we also have our esteemed shipping line connecting between Canada and Jamaica with CMA CGM, welcoming Louis.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning to everybody. Yeah, we're really excited about this, actually.
And I wanted to take the opportunity as well to thank JAMPRO for working with us to bring this collaborative presentation together to discuss the bilateral trade opportunities between our two countries, Canada and Jamaica, and how we can collaboratively work together to build out logistics chain solutions for this bilateral trade opportunity.
Door to door, exactly.
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. So without further ado, I will share my screen and bring up our presentation. Here we go. So to give you a little perspective before I get into the presentation today, I wanted to give you some context in and around how the Port of St. John integrates itself within the supply chain, trade, as well as the logistics chain and connecting ourselves with Jamaica. So our role and the way that we help facilitate trade is we're able to have access to different databases to understand key buyers for import cargo that's coming into Canada. So we can help facilitate and identify customers for any Jamaican companies looking to connect and sell their products here in the Canadian market. In addition to that, our role as a logistics connector, I would say, is that we can be a one-stop shop to help integrate and look at building a supply chain in and around your business. So that could mean exports from Canada or exports from Jamaica, and not just looking at the offering of the port as a whole, but also those that we connect with to ensure a door-to-door service. So that could include the logistics and transportation piece, but it also can include looking at warehousing options, supply, distribution, inventory control, et cetera, et cetera. So we like to help build out the framework that's required for you to be able to do your business between the two countries. And in addition, I'm here to promote the services within the port directly and the value added opportunities that we can provide here with our terminal operator. So what I'd like to do to start out with is look at what does the opportunity look like? So what are we seeing as bilateral traded cargo, kind of looking at a perspective of imports and exports for both markets? So today, looking at the total value in Canadian dollars, we're seeing significant trade on both the Jamaican imports and Jamaican exports. So having a balanced bilateral trade is key within any countries that are looking to establish business. That means on the inbound and outbound, having that flexibility and balance is key for a number of reasons, including balancing trade, but also the logistics costs associated with doing so. So in 2020, the government of Canada reported $122 million of Jamaica cargo that's being imported into Canada. And the Jamaican exports is $84 million. So we're seeing that synergy. Now, with respect to the magnitude and diversity of cargo, commodities that are being traded between the two countries, for the Jamaican imports, so this would be the Canadian exports, we're seeing a significant variation of products. Like I mentioned, the 122 million, a lot of food grade product, but also a lot of pharmaceuticals, consumables, a lot of agricultural products, meat products, forest products. So there's a wide span of goods that are trading from Canada into Jamaica. Now, with respect to looking at the switch, so that's the Jamaican exports or imports into Canada. Again, a lot of products that are in and around food grade products, consumables, pharmaceuticals, alcohol. There's also a high degree and concentration on aluminum oxides. So having the flexibility and diversity in the number of commodities is also important when looking at trade opportunities. So this really just illustrates that there's a wide span and diversity in the number of commodities trading between the two countries today. And that means we have a healthy trade opportunity. So now to put it into perspective before I jump to this slide, JAMPRO really helps along in building the trade opportunities with respect to exports from Jamaica into Canada or other markets for that matter, helping the Jamaican exporters to identify market opportunities and to build out that whole trade piece with the specific country. Now, on the reverse side, in Canada, we have a very similar structure whereby we have, through Global Affairs Canada, a trade team looking to help Canadian exporters build out their business in international markets, including Jamaica. So they would have their eyes and ears on the ground while they have a team in place here in Canada. They also have teams in place in Jamaica as well. So this really helps foster on both ends that trade opportunity for companies interested in investigating and developing business in these markets. Now, on the Canadian side as well, each of our provinces have export development committees or departments that will also help foster and grow in international markets, including Jamaica. Now, let's think about our current situation. So with respect to supply chains and how COVID-19 has impacted all of us, I'm still sitting in my basement here in St. John, New Brunswick, not going into the office, and I'm sure many of you are in a very similar situation. So let's make the best of it, understanding the realities of COVID-19, specifically to our supply chains. Now, there have been disruptions, I'm not going to lie to you, but I'll put it into perspective of the way that the supply chain has been impacted here in St. John. So our total case count currently is 2. So because we have, as a province, been able to keep our numbers relatively low, we have had minimal impact by way of COVID-19 with respect to our ability to have fluidity at the Port of St. John with our container moves. So because we've had limited cases, we have had minimal staff, supply chain partners, and the port staff itself not be disrupted because of the requirements of quarantining or because of illness. So we remain very fluid at the port, but also our providers within our logistics chain have experienced the same. So if you want to look at the total supply chain perspective, now that we've looked at St. John and seen that it has minimal impact, let's think about the industry. How has that been impacted? My apologies. So we talk about the loss of work because of the pandemic, quarantining, illness, etc. It has played havoc on the impacts of all of the logistics chain partners, and in particular in areas that we're traditionally seeing flow through of cargo throughout North America that's looking to access the Canadian marketplace or vice versa. So let's take, for example, traditional trade routes for cargo flow into or out of Canada for international markets has been the US Northeast through ports in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, et cetera, et cetera. So we have seen a high concentration of COVID-19 in those particular markets. There has been congestion. There has been some increase in dwell time. There has been lack of availability of inland connectors because of closures at borders, et cetera, et cetera. So keeping that in mind and the minimal impact that we've seen in St. John in particular, and having an all Canadian logistics chain for cargo that's flowing in and out of Canada is something really to consider, because those variables are mitigated if you can remove them or mitigate them. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up is that consumer spending in North America has really changed over the last couple of months. And we've seen a heavy influx of the number of imports coming into North America because of this change. Consumers are feeling more confident. They're spending their money on consumer goods as opposed to travel. And because of this, there has been an increase in trade, in particular on the import side. Now we are seeing, because of this change, an increase in the number of vessels that are being anchored, waiting to berth at ports on the west coast of Canada, but also in the United States. So with this in mind, it's oftentimes important to realize that while they're experiencing 60 plus vessels waiting to anchor and having those delays of getting cargo off of those vessels and delays of getting your goods to and from your customer base, in St. John, we're not congested whatsoever. With CMA in particular, they have an allotted berth that is dedicated for them each and every Friday. So without fail, they come in and they go out on Fridays every week. So there's no concern for delay with respect to the fluidity in St. John. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is equipment availability and positioning. So while we're seeing in some global markets like Asia and Europe, for example, there have been some challenges in accessing some containers and the availability of containers and the equipment to allow for cargo flow. Now, if you're doing business with that particular market, it could impact your ability to get your goods to and from those marketplaces. Here in Canada, we're not as experiencing those types of delays with equipment as they're seeing in Asia or in Europe. So if that's the case and you're looking at building out and removing that variable, Canada is another consideration to build business with. Explore the market opportunity and look to grow that particular trade. The other thing I wanted to touch on since COVID-19 hit is the real change in the cost of shipping into certain marketplaces. So we're seeing again, Asia, Europe, the actual figures, if you wanted to look even 6 months ago, to import or export a container in those marketplaces may be, $2,000. And I've heard that in some cases that they're $9,000 into Asia or Europe. So if that's the case, looking at the Canadian marketplace where there's a little bit more stability in the container rates into this market or out of this market with Jamaica, there is a potential of grow and fostering that bilateral trade as well. Now, a few things to consider with respect to priorities. Obviously, there are some priorities that take precedent over others, and those would include PPEs, foodstuff, pharmaceuticals, or medical equipment. And obviously, those are the number one priorities to make sure that they have accessibility into the marketplace itself. So all in all, and I talk about the market and demand, it's just something to think about is looking at Canada to build your business with. And vice versa, Canadians need to look at Jamaica. There's a lot less, challenge in and around the supply chain in our two countries right now because of COVID-19. And it seems like a natural fit to build upon this business. The other thing to consider is product positioning. Getting your goods closer to the market, either in Jamaica or in Canada, and taking advantage of some of the supply chain solutions we have to get your goods into your customer base a little bit quicker than if you were to just do a traditional route of shipping as needed. So if there are any supply chain disruptions, you can mitigate those by getting your goods closer to your customer and then doing inventory control and distribution closer to the client. And then the last message I wanted to put out there, because of some of these challenges that we've been experiencing, is to really think about optionality within your supply chain. The more options you build with respect to utilizing additional ports, utilizing additional lines, utilizing additional rail programs, or looking at truck versus rail to do that last mile, building out that flexibility and not pigeonholing yourself into one particular area can really help mitigate some of these variables that can impact your supply chain as a whole. Now, let's get into, my selfish message, and that's the Port of St. John. So the Port of St. John, to put it into perspective, we're located on the east coast of Canada in the Atlantic Ocean, and I'll show you a map just to show you exactly where the location is. And with respect to our size, we're the largest port in Atlantic Canada. And while today we're focusing heavily on containers, trade in and out, we're also able to handle break bulk and bulk services as well here at the Port of St. John. So on average, we're handling about 27 million metric tons of cargo. Now, keeping in mind, because of our diversity, a bulk of that volume is actually within liquid and dry bulk handling. We're handling about 100,000 TEUs of container volume each year, and we're positioning ourselves for growth. Now, the interesting thing to note is that part of what we're looking to do as a port is to position ourselves for future growth in support of our existing container lines, which heavily involves CMA CGM and the Kajima service that calls into the St. John port. Now, we like to integrate ourselves and look at ourselves as being an arm's length assistant in promoting the services of CMA. And we've been integrating a lot of this work and communication in other markets in the South. And because of our efforts, we've been able to see a growth of 350% on our import volume. And that's doing everything virtually in a COVID world. So I need to really emphasize that St. John does make sense, and we have the abilities to assist you in looking at that supply chain conversion. And it's not just about what we have to offer, but it's the natural points as well. St. John, actually, like I mentioned, is on the east. We're positioned centrally to access all of the major population bases within Quebec, Ontario, and also as far down the northeast as Boston. So we have the accessibility, while St. John, New Brunswick is not a largely population-based center of Canada, we have the accessibility within a day, day and a half to gain access to that customer base. So as I mentioned today, we have diverse facilities, including cruise. When we're allowed to, please visit St. John, New Brunswick by cruise. It's definitely one advantage, especially for the Jamaican audience, is that it's naturally air conditioned. But we also have an abundance of natural wonders, including the highest tides in the world. So definitely put it on your bucket list to come visit us when cruise resumes. Now, our container business is focused on the bottom left-hand quadrant of this presentation. And this is our dedicated container facility. So while it's able to handle, like I said, bulk and break bulk, their primary business is within container shipping. So getting into our cargo services, DP World is our container terminal operator here in St. John. They are one of the largest in the world, and they operate out of 80 terminals worldwide. They have a 30-year concession to operate in St. John. They came on board in 2017. So this is a newly established relationship, but we've seen great headways since they've come on board, including the addition of CMA CGM, and really has changed the landscape of our container shipping over the last going on 4 years. So in addition to that, they offer a wide variety of value-added services. In addition, they do stuffing and de-stuffing right on port property here. And any customs related operations are done on site. They also offer 3 warehouse spaces that are about 13,000 square meters each that are directly connected to rail and adjacent to our highway system, building in that whole flexibility and variableness within our logistics chain here in St. John. And also, if you're looking at importing or exporting any goods that require a temperature control chain or a cold chain itself, we do have 481 reefer plugs on site to assist with that. They also offer an MVOCC. If you have any type of challenging or interesting moves that require a little bit further assistance in building out, they can offer that as well. And while the Port of St. John is investing in our growth in the future, we are committed to $205 million upgrade to this facility by way of enhancing the depth of the water, the strength of the piers, the fluidity of rail and road. DP World is committed to investing in technologies and also in the container handling equipment itself to make sure that we are positioned to continue this type of growth we've been experiencing here in St. John. So here's a good vantage point of the 3 facilities that they have with the rail access and the road access. Now this we'll get into a little bit further detail in the presentation about the rail program and the trucking program a little later on. Now I talk about what we're looking to experience here as far as the future growth. So along this here area, there will be an extended pier. So it'll allow for more vessels to come in, larger vessels to come in, but also looking at a phase 2 project, these 2 finger piers will eventually be filled in, allowing for more container laydown area. So we're actually going to have the ability to handle at the conclusion of this project about 600,000 TEUs. And I'll turn it over to Louis.
Thanks, Shannon. We are very excited. I mean, CMA CGM Group, we are north of 110,000 employees worldwide, the 3rd largest carrier in the world. And our commitment to Kingston and to Jamaica is clear and is to be continuous. We have invested, and we are now the owner of the terminal in Kingston, the Kingston Freeport Terminal. We have developed a fantastic relationship with Port St. John in New Brunswick. Their terminal operator, DP World, we also work with them in other ports. So it is a relationship that has been going on for many years and many years to come. Our dedication to the Kajima service is what we call it, from Port St. John down to Kingston. It is our hub as well, and it is a gateway to the world. Over and above, we really want to emphasize that this is a strategic trade lane. We recognize the opportunities both on the export and on the import, and we have seen that in the cargo mix. So if I go to the next slide, Shannon. So looking at the service, it is a weekly service with a 3-vessel rotation. And so we have that every single week dedicated. And as Shannon alluded to earlier, disruptions in that schedule has not happened. We have not omitted that service as has happened across the world due to the pandemic. It is a dedicated service. It is an on-time service, and it is weekly 3-vessel rotation. The trip down, southbound, stops both in New York, Savannah, goes into Kingston. On the way back, it does not touch the US. It goes straight up, back up to a couple of stops in the Caribbean and up to Port St. John as well. So it's definitely a service that offers multitude of opportunities. And that's not only in the dry 20 and 40 feet, that also is in refrigerated cargo. That is also in project cargo. We actually are very active in both break bulk and in any kind of OOG cargo. So that is opportunities that we can look at together. But definitely it is a service that we are very, very proud of. And we are exclusive. There's nobody else that offers this kind of timeline into Jamaica. So we're really, really proud of that. And the relationship, and it is a relationship between not only our customers, but also both sides of the door-to-door on the port. So we are work together collaboratively, and we definitely are looking for future even expansions and all kinds of other opportunities we can get, because we do believe this is going to be a project that is going to be open for innovation and for new opportunities. As we're seeing the world dynamic changing with the industries and the different product lines that we are seeing in the cargo mix, we are definitely excited about the future. So I want to go to the next slide. So basically, in terms of timeline, you're looking at 9 days southbound or northbound. It is something that is something we'd be proud of. There's nobody else that offers that kind of transit time into Jamaica. So definitely something to look at and to promote this relationship, because I think there is a lot of opportunities that we are just beginning to see previously. And the positive side, and we got to look at a positive side on this pandemic, it has opened the door to a lot of new markets and a lot of new opportunities, and we are seeing that weekly on the mix of cargo that we are loading on our vessels. Okay, next slide, Shannon. Another thing that's very, very important: curbing global warming implies a drastic reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions. The CMA CGM Group is investing massively in research and development to design the clean vessels of the future, and we also know that Jamaica has an ecosystem in the world to protect it, and we need to look at that. And in light of that, we do offer different programs that can do with cleaner energy, with LNG or biofuel, as well as opportunities to engage in social and environmental programs. So I wanted to take a moment to say that CMA CGM not only looks at shipping A to B, it's also how can we help and the impact that we need to as a world and all in logistics in our industry, to look at the possibility of moving forward and being innovative in the world of environment. So anything that we can also do to promote and help you achieve those objectives, because it is important in many of our customers and in their objectives and in their vision. So we definitely have sustainability programs that can help promote that and achieve those objectives. So you'll be able to reach me. We can discuss them and opportunities that they are certified programs, and they can definitely help both of us in terms of the reduction of the carbon emissions. Okay. So in terms of the rail, we definitely have connections, like Shannon has mentioned, between Quebec and Ontario with CN Rail. That is the rail that CMA-CGM uses. We're looking at 2 days from Port St. John into Montreal, and then an additional day into Toronto. So it's literally very quick geographically to connect these major centers, both on the inbound and on the outbound. It's reliable, it is there, and we have very short transit times when it comes to connecting Port St. John with your arrival of the cargo into Canada. It is literally in Montreal 2 days later, and it's in Toronto 3 days later. So that is definitely something that is of interest to point out, because as Shannon alluded to earlier, the geographic population is where you want the cargo to get from arrival into destination, so you're door to door. And the same thing comes when you're looking arrival, going into as an export, your cargo departing from Ontario or Quebec, getting into Port St. John as well, is the same timeline. So it is a dedicated rail service. We definitely have a relationship as well when it comes to that. So when we're talking about CMA-CGM, we don't only look at a rate. We're not only looking at it as a transaction. We're looking at it as a partnership. And with our supply chain partners, we work as a partnership. And that's how we want to work with our customers, because it's important to facilitate that. And we have the opportunity to help and assist that. And with our global presence and with our opportunities and our investments and our innovation, this is something that is more and more where CMA-CGM wants to go towards digitalization, having opportunity platforms that facilitate. So we're not limited to time. Given the pandemic as well, it allows 24/7 accessibility to our website, to our pricing, to a lot of different opportunities that we want to be innovative, and we are continuously investing in, especially as we spoke about cleaner air, opportunities on the environment, and sustainability is on the forefront of who CMA-CGM is today. In terms of road connections, that's definitely also a opportunity that if the rail is not an option, or there's possible any disruptions or anything, there is trucking available because of also the proximity to Port St. John from both, again, Toronto and Montreal. We can offer as well options on trucking if that is something of interest, and the rates also can be reviewed if there's a matchback or a turnaround. If we can, looking at maybe an export, so an outbound with an inbound, we can definitely look at the possibilities of working with you to establish a supply chain and a solution. And that's the big key here, is a solution. We offer both rail and road connection between these major cities on the inbound as well as on the outbound. So the geographic location of Port St. John, New Brunswick is phenomenal for that, to connect and to really facilitate your commerce and your business, because it's of the essence. And as Shannon alluded to earlier, there are a lot of delays in other parts of the world today, with both weather-related issues that causes some delays. There's some equipment issues, but in terms of this specific corridor, the Canada to Jamaica, it is a solid, it is a steady, and it is a dedicated service. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Louis, for providing your context in and around CMA's connectivity and how you're able to integrate the inland last mile into the program as well through Port St. John. I'm just going to kind of wrap up with a few other value-added services or ideas, in particular in relation to how St. John, New Brunswick can play a role in establishing and growing your business bilaterally with Canada or vice versa. So on the import side, St. John, New Brunswick has actually been established as one of 10 foreign trade zones in all of Canada. The federal government established us as this foreign trade zone point, very similar to a free trade zone, however, acts a little bit different than what you would normally see in one of these zones in other markets. So the foreign trade zone is like the free trade zone, where it has tax and duty implications, either a deferral or an exemption. And all of this happening within the entire region of the city of St. John, as opposed to a fenced in geographic region. So as long as the operation is taking place in a customs bonded warehouse, like one that is located at the DP World facility at the port, the programs can take two parts. One is that whole just-in-time program. If you're looking at bringing your cargo in and having it warehoused here closer to your client, any taxes or duties implied for that import are not paid until they're further re-exported into international markets. So it allows for a period in cash flow savings for the importer looking to bring cargo into the port and into the city of St. John for warehouse and distribution. The exemption part is either full or partial, and that's when you would bring in goods in a raw form material state and manipulate or change the makeup of that product and then further re-export it. And depending on what that change looks like would depend on the actual amount of exemption the product would receive for duties and taxes. Port of St. John also has a 13,000 square meter warehouse adjacent to the container terminal operator. If someone's interested in building their business and who requires significant marine access by a port, but also adjacent to rail and highway systems, looking to access, the Northeast US, but also the Canadian marketplace as well. So it is available for either a full or partial warehousing. And also we're working to grow and expand in some of our value-added service markets and working with an investor on building a cold storage facility in our region. So we're looking at identifying what that opportunity looks like by way of volume, the product types, handling requirements, value-added services, or if there's any requirement for distribution and inventory control. So if this is something you're interested in, I'd like to take it offside and talk to you in more detail so that we can discover that together. Now, just a couple of considerations before I wrap up here. One thing to consider whenever developing your bilateral trade opportunity in the negotiation of the contract between the buyer and the seller, it's critical to understand of which Incoterm the actual transaction is taking place, because the transaction Incoterm will dictate who's responsible for which element of the transaction, meaning cost or planning, etc. So if you look at the left-hand side, it lists all of the different transaction points with a sale of good. So all of these different elements typically require some form of a fee. So it's important to note which Incoterm the actual product is being traded, which are listed across the top. Because if you look at the bottom, for each of the different implied transfers of risk or requirements for the sale of good, the actual change of risk will go from the buyer to the seller dependent on which Incoterm it's traded with. So really to note, for NEC, you would have a lot of different opportunities to have the flexibility of when the risk and the cost would go from the buyer or the seller. So really critical to understand. It looks very complicated on this particular graph, but it's really good for you to really appreciate the importance of this because it can really cost out a product of, or add additional costs that you weren't aware of before you're developing this business transaction with your client. Now, if it seems too complex and you just want to kind of sell your good and go away. I'm going to be honest with you. If you are not familiar with customs, documentation, regulation, import certification, how to book cargo, how to book freight inland, the last mile, insurance, customs documentation, clearance, it's just so much stuff. Call a freight forwarder. The best way to describe what a freight forwarder is, they are a travel agent for your cargo. From point A to point B and everything in between, they have the relationships with CMA, CGM. And they also have the volume. So if you're new to shipping and you're shipping one container, you're likely going to get a better rate from a freight forwarder than you are if you're just booking one container. So while it is an added cost, there are elements that you could save money, because if any of those elements are not handled properly during the shipment of the good from point A to point B, it can actually cost you time because you've delayed the process because the paperwork or the regulations met in the importing country aren't met. But also it can actually cost you dollars, because maybe the implications of doing incorrect documentation and processing cost you additional money. So I have a listing of freight forwarders in Canada. There's also in Canada the Canadian International Freight Forwarders Association, which has a listing of members across Canada. Jamaica also has a freight forwarding association if you're in Jamaica that you could connect with. But I really strongly want to stress the importance of a freight forwarder if you are not experienced. And that is the conclusion of our presentation, and we're definitely open for questions.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Louis. That was probably that was probably one of the most insightful presentations I've heard, based on the insights you shared on how Jamaica can really tap into Canada's market and vice versa. So just to give you the audience a quick wrap up of the discussion so far. So you would have heard from Don Gittins from JAMPRO, which shed some light on Jamaica's shipping capabilities and sea connectivity and some logistics opportunities for investment, which will build out further our ability to trade with the world. Shannon's presentation, you just gave a very good overview of the volumes and categories of goods traded between Jamaica and Canada, and you also shed some light on some business opportunities. So for those exporters listening in, business opportunities include such as PPE, food products, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment. Shannon, you would have also made mention of the importance of being close to your customer base. And the PSJ, the Port St. John, offers options for warehousing. So this is something that potential or current exporters can look into. And guys, you will have direct access to Shannon and Louis via email and through this webinar also. So please make use of that. Shannon, you also spoke about the importance of freight forwarders and how this can actually save time and money for persons looking to do trade. Louis, you provided a very good insight into the actual physical logistic routes of traded goods and the implications that that may have on routes to market. The fact that you can get goods from Kingston into Atlantic Canada in less than 9 days, and into Toronto via railway and road trucking in less than 12 days. And I think this is very important because, especially now within the context of the pandemic, shipping options are becoming, more disrupted. So this is a really good option for persons that are looking to ship produce, especially through the reefer containers, the cold storage capabilities that CMA CGM offers. So I urge you all to take note of that and to share some questions that you may have for the panelists right now in the Q&A. And if you're not able to do so, we will be able to do that subsequent to the webinar via email to Shannon and Louis. So I am going to open up the floor right now for questions. I am seeing that we have, okay, so the first question, and I think this would probably go to Shannon. What accounts for the fluidity of the movement of the vessel at St. John's compared to the other ports where there are bottlenecks? So Shannon, I don't know if you have some insights, or probably Louis can share on that.
Yeah, I
So
mean, definitely go ahead, Shannon, because this is actually something that is completely an excellent point between both Port St. John and CMA-CGM. So yeah, let's go and I'll add in anything else.
So perhaps I can talk from a port perspective, and Louis, you can take from the vessel perspective. So from a port perspective, as far as the operations at the port, I did allude to the fact that we've had minimal disruption due to loss of labor because of COVID-19. And that's where a lot of the challenge has been currently with ports with respect to the availability of labor to handle the loading and offloading of the vessel. And because we're only sitting at 2 cases currently, I think our max case count in the whole city was 25 throughout this last year. So really minimal implications as far as the operation of the terminal itself. The other thing I wanted to shed light on is the booked berth that we have for CMA is consistent weekly. We are not congested. In addition to CMA, there is only one other container line that operates currently at our facility, and we are positioning ourselves for future growth and continued fluidity throughout our facility through the investments I talked about with our infrastructure, our technology, looking at tracking and tracing, but also tracking that KPI so that it can be more visible to those that are using the facilities.
Yeah, and in terms of CMA-CGM, being the owner of the Kingston Freeport Terminal allows the frequency, the consistency, and the turnaround efficiency. It's maintained, and that is key because we are there and we have invested there to be there. And so the turnaround, and there is no bottlenecks because of that. We definitely work in tandem. The inspections also at the Port St. John are done directly at the port. So that's also a cost and time efficiency. So in terms of both Canada and in Jamaica, the turnaround and the efficiencies are there. And that's why we do not have those bottlenecks that we see and people have heard elsewhere.
All right, thanks, Louis. I have another question. Most of what has been talked about seems to surround the movement of large amount of goods. How do a small business person like myself fit in, or how do I benefit from all these opportunities? So I'm not sure. I guess I'd imagine that this is a Jamaican.
I mean, definitely. But I mean, Shannon did allude to that. If you are inexperienced or you lack a little bit of the know-how, the freight forwarding community is your key to do that. Definitely, as a industry, we work with the freight forwarders in Canada, absolutely. And so the opportunity for even somebody who is small, everybody at one point was small before they grew. So we do not segregate and say, because you're small, we don't pay attention. So both in terms of larger exporters or importers, or somebody who wants to start off or is small, and small is relative, right? For us, we have a beautiful opportunity with our freight forwarders that can assist in that.
And in addition, I wanted to add that in particular in the Caribbean, oftentimes folks are interested in looking at working with a consolidator. So essentially what they'll do is the consolidator, say in Jamaica, for example, will take parcels or barrels from 5 different people looking to ship into Canada, and they'll actually put all of those goods into one container. And then they take care of receiving the container in Canada with their partner and distributing each of those particular units to the people that are of interest. But freight forwarders, or perhaps JAMPRO has the connections with consolidators in Jamaica that could help facilitate those discussions.
In fact, we do. We are able to connect exporters with support services, as you call them, such as freight forwarders, consolidators, packing houses, etc. So we are actually, in fact, able to give you a comprehensive list of who the service providers are on the island, and you're free to make those connections. All right, Shannon, I have a question for you. What are the advantages that you would be seeing by using Port St. John to connect with Jamaica?
Well, I think first and foremost is the transit time. It's essentially, like Louis said, a dedicated direct service, no transshipment between Canada and Jamaica. The port in Jamaica is owned and operated by CMA CGM. That gives the ability to manage and build out the, I guess, the level of um, commitment to make sure that the vessels turn around quickly in Jamaica. But here in St. John, that connectivity is bar none the most important connection that we have, and being able to access, the Central Canadian marketplace. Our fluidity is key, not congested. The vast opportunities as well for bilateral trade in developing an alternative market, looking outside of the traditional box of, using a US port to gain access into Canada, and all of the challenges in and around the variable possibilities of added cost, time, et cetera, et cetera. With our connection with CMA and the CN rail line, we can connect into Central Canada in under 14 days. And inspections are done on site at the port. So it really eliminates any variables for cost or for time altogether.
Excellent. All right, so we are about wrapping up. If there are any further questions, I'm asking that you please place them in the Q&A box and not in the chat down below. But just before we wrap up, I'm going to throw out a general question to all three panelists, since we have you here at our disposal. If there are any sort of insights or perspectives that you can share on any sort of trends that you're seeing in the shipping and logistics space. I mean, anything that you wish to share with the audience, and if not, just anything that you would, any final words that you may have for our audience. So I think, Louis, I'm going to start with you, and then we can take that from there.
Absolutely. And again, I want to focus, the positive in terms of the markets. The chaotic situation that the pandemic has also opened up some opportunities, and whether they are PPE or even on the transport side, we're seeing also an influx, in transportation, whether it's cars, whether it's recreational vehicles. There's a lot of different and other opportunities that are coming out, especially in markets that maybe weren't the traditional markets before. Also, because of the connectivity, because of the relationship, we're actually seeing a lot more opportunities in the cargo mix. So in terms of, if you're looking globally, I think we would be cheating ourselves not to look and realize that there is opportunities out there, and there are the market demands and the consumer needs and the accessibility, in terms of financially, people, there's the consumer, there is maybe additional income, and they're looking to maybe relook at certain aspects of their purchasing. So we are seeing, and we have been seeing, some interesting and new cargo mix coming onto our vessels. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Louis. As Shannon would have alluded to, there is a big shift in consumer trends. People are consuming more, they're cooking more, they're staying at home more instead of traveling. So, persons who would have traveled normally and would have gone to different experiences throughout the year don't have those opportunities right now. So their next best bet is consumables. So there is a lot more spending power in North America, and persons are just buying. I mean, I, for one, you just go on Amazon and you're just like, okay, what am I going to buy today? Because you can't do anything else, right? So there are many opportunities there for a wide variety of products, and we would have heard some insights from both of you guys about that. So
I wanted to add to that too, Stephen. Like I had said at the beginning of the presentation, we have access to importer lists in Canada. So if any Jamaican company has particular products, as long as they know the HS code, we can actually do a report of companies in Canada buying those goods.
Oh, wow.
So if you're offering,
excellent.
product XYZ, and then give me the 6-digit code, I can run the report on who's buying those products today. So it really helps build that customer base in Canada.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's
and even to that as well. Yeah, sorry about that. Even to that as well, in terms of active CMA CGM customers, we can actually even look at kind of a networking opportunity as well. So absolutely, this is a partnership. This is something that is not short term. It's a long term vision. The investment has been put in for 30+ years into the Kingston Freeport terminal for the exact reason is that we definitely can connect on both sides. And as I said, the partnership with Port St. John and now with JAMPRO and everything we can do together, we can definitely facilitate that fluid connectivity between buyers and sellers. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just adding to what Shannon and Louis had said is that, and Shannon said it earlier, the product positioning. What we're seeing as a trend is you're seeing goods closer to the market. That is something that we've been seeing. People are looking at advanced hubs, and it is a trend that we see happening, and it is good because what it means, and it shortens the cycle. It shortens your supply chain cycle, which is excellent. And that is one of the things that we see coming out of the pandemic, and Stephen, there are a few more, before we wrap up, there are a few more questions in the Q&A.
Yes, I just saw that they're coming in.
I would want us to try and see if we can, answer them as quickly as we can before we wrap up.
I'm going to ask the audience to just bear with us. I know we had set this webinar for an hour and we're just over that, but I think there's some very pressing questions. And since we have Shannon and Louis at our disposal, it would be great to take advantage.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to say that we're going to do this again soon. Yeah. So just, and I'm sure Stephen will relate to that.
Yes, and for persons who are asking if the presentations will be circulated, yes, there will be a full recording available of this webinar that will be automatically sent to you at the end of the session. All right, so Dwayne Faulkner is asking what solutions are available for containerized fresh produce to move over rail or road, particularly in areas such as Calgary. Carriers like ZIM and CMA are not calling these areas due to the unavailability of genset to maintain container temperatures. I hope Shannon and Louis were able to process that. If you need, I can repeat it, but if you can take a stab at that question.
I mean, I would definitely, I would invite that individual as well to send me a message, an email. I can look into it. The CN rail, there is no gen rail, so it would have to be more from the port that would continue. So the whole genset on the reefer side, that would definitely be something that we can look at on the individual. So absolutely, if we can, we can have the individual bring this to us. We can take a look at it. But yeah, in terms of CN, there is no gen rail at the moment yet.
Okay, thanks for that. And I think our final question, I'm not sure which one of you would be able to answer this. A Jamaican company just trying to enter Canada, we're not able to see offerings of a 20-foot container into Canada. Why is that? I think probably Louis.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where there has been a disconnect, because there is no issue at all in terms of CMA CGM offering 20-foot containers on the import side, as well as we do the 40s. There is no issue. We offer both options, 20s and 40s.
Okay. All right, folks. If there are no further questions at this time, let me just give you 5 more seconds just to get that last question in. All right, so there you have it. Thank you all for joining us. We've come to the end of our webinar. As mentioned before, a full recording of this webinar will be sent to you automatically via email, and you will be able to access it from the JAMPRO YouTube website. Shannon, Louis, Don, thank you so much. I personally have learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience will agree. If there are any further questions, you can email JAMPRO, info@jamprocorp.com. We will direct your questions accordingly. I think Shannon and Louis would have shared their email addresses in the chat. If not, JAMPRO can also get those over to you. So once again, my name is Stephen Charu, Consul for Trade and Investment in Canada through JAMPRO. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day and great rest of week. Thank you again, panelists. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Yes.
Well.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Louis. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.